Madison campus. Dr. Murillo, would you lead us in this discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kozire. At this time, I'm going to turn the podium over to Mr. Wilson, who will introduce our presenters tonight. Mr. Wilson?
Evening, Board. Tonight, we are going to discuss the parking lot issues at the Madison campus, and for this conversation will be Stacy Pettit, our Director of Facilities, and Mr. Jared Olson from HGM. So, Stacy?
Good evening, Board. Dr. Murillo.
Good evening.
Hey, thank you for allowing Jared Olson from HGM as well as myself to present bid number 19-020, the Madison campus parking lot project at this public hearing this evening. So I'd like to give just a little bit of history on this project. Last winter, we hired HGM to do a traffic study out at Madison campus, with our main goal focusing on the faculty parking lot as well as parent drop-off and the bus loading zones, with safety being a big issue for us because it's a large parking lot. So with that being said, we took a look at bus traffic, parent traffic, and we were trying to eliminate any cross-traffic between the two groups. We did notice at that time that there was some minor parking lot issues that were going to need to be addressed during the construction project. So we needed to do that before the fall started. With that being said, and I'm probably going to pull this come loose. To explain the parking lot project, we actually have two zones. We have the bus loading zone, which is this lower area, and then we have this upper area, which is the staff visitor parking lot. And basically, like I said, we were trying to eliminate any kind of cross-traffic between the two areas. So with that being said, all the bus traffic comes in from this upper area, loads into these slots, and then exits down this direction. And the parent loading zone is actually the opposite direction. It comes in from up here and goes around and exits out to the north of the building. Basically, we have the center blue line is a walkway. We're looking at different options for that. We're looking at like a jersey curb or something that looks nicer than that for the student walkways, but we have several of them, one being this area. And actually, if there's any students that are walking to the site, they would come down the sidewalk, which is the pink area up at the top, use the crosswalk, and then hit this long sidewalk right here. That gets them straight into the building. And same with the bus zone. Any of the hashed areas are the walkways for the students that gets them across the sidewalk and into the building. The nice thing about this lot plan is we do have a large queuing area for the parent drop-off. So it starts up at this area and actually works its way around the front of the building so the students can exit out of the car in many directions and then get down into the building.
So how do they enter the cars after school?
Same way.
And
The
is it going to
parents
be a
would queue up.
continuous motion, or are parents going to be able to park there?
They would park in the line and then they would move through the queuing line as the kids get in. So basically the kid gets in and then they pop out into this drive and drive off.
But after school?
Yeah,
So
same thing.
parents can sit there and park.
Mhm.
Is that going to back traffic up with cars?
We may have some backup, but there's the ability, I don't know how many spots do you think that is, Jared? We can actually use any of the parking lot that's down here, and then there's additional parking up on this end of the
But we
parking
wouldn't
lot.
want students, I mean, if buses are loading and going down that way, right? We wouldn't want students walking across that way if buses are leaving that way.
That would just be for them to queue up as the parking lot's emptying. We would have parents coming in at the end.
So what you're stating then, Stacy, is that students will be with a teacher or something standing on the sidewalk until the parent's car pulls up. Then they get in there and the parents go. We're struggling a little bit, Dr. Ogres, with knowing exactly how much traffic to prepare for, because we're with the option of every student getting transportation and the buses.
So what's the
Yes.
traffic like now at Kern?
Well, we don't offer transportation for all students at Kern now.
My question is, what is the traffic like at Kern now with parents dropping off and picking up? And that's gonna be twice as bad if we're not offering that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we should anticipate that
Yeah.
for traffic levels to be even significantly worse.
Well, after school, if it is an athletic, and Tim, why don't you join us up here? After school, if it's athletic activity, we are taking them either to the field or to the field house, and then they'll go on their activity buses home. But at Kern now, the reason that we have so much parent drop-off, which is, I would say, incredible from what I watch, how they're parked down the street, but we don't offer busing for all children. Next year, all children that attend Madison campus that live in the Kern boundaries receives the option to have a bus ride.
Let me just
parents-
clarify your statement. So this fall, all students will be bused?
Yes,
Okay.
They have the ability to bus.
yes.
Okay.
And we,
Do you anticipate more parents taking advantage of that? I mean, has there been some type of survey done to
Yes.
see what the traffic would be like compared to buses?
that's correct, because we were trying to figure out how many additional buses to
Right.
order. And so, Tim, go ahead and talk a little bit about the survey that you and Diane sent out for us.
Yeah, we sent out a survey to all parents just asking if they would take advantage of it. We received, it's about 80% that say they would, which is far higher than what we currently have. So 80% said that they would take advantage of transportation every day after school. And then like Dr. Murillo said, after sports or any athletic events, there'll be late buses going home as well.
How many faculty do you have at Kern, and how many spots do you have for parking for them?
We currently have approximately 88 people that are in the building during the daytime hours, and then of course, we have custodians there in the evening as well as activities going on.
And how many parking spots do you have?
There's
for
about
them?
101
Okay,
spots.
so plenty of parking for
Mhm.
staff. Okay.
And we do have the ability to park in several other areas. We're not limited to the areas that we actually own.
Okay.
Right now, I think we're about doubling our bus capacity compared to what we actually have at Kern right now. So there's an ability to have about 33 buses in that queuing area. So basically, that's the parking lot layout, and winter was very long and not kind to us, as many of you know. The parking lot unfortunately saw many areas of large problematic spaces and areas of concern. So basically, after winter was over, HGM came back out and we did a large site survey of the whole parking lot, and we noticed that there's probably a potential for $500,000 worth of repairs. We're limiting it to the very worst of the worst, the ones that are major liability issues for the school district. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jared so he can explain the project to you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, what we see here is what we focused on for the worst of the worst, as Stacy said it, from the site assessment. This is obviously right along the front of the building, and then at the main entrances, if you see along the Loop Mall roadway there, we're basically redoing all the entrances off of that. Anyone who's driven down there knows those are kind of in the worst shape. Since we're going to be concentrating traffic in those locations, we figured they were likely going to deteriorate very quickly if we didn't address them. And then naturally along the front, that's going to have a lot of the foot traffic, and a lot of the parent vehicles are going to be concentrating along the front for drop-off as they head out towards Mall Drive. So that's basically what we're looking at here. As Stacy said, we identified a little over $500,000 worth of stuff that is likely in need of repair. However, we estimated this to be around $200,000 worth of work. As part of this, we're also addressing a good chunk of the sidewalk that's in between the parking lot and the building itself. Up in the top corner, the yellow there, that whole area, if you've been through there, you can see the parking lot heaved into it over the winter, buckled the sidewalk, so we're replacing that. There's several areas of broken up curbway along the front. We're going to address that with the new pavement that's going in front of it. And then at the south end there, at the bottom, that yellow area there, that's also where a new flagpole is going in, and we're going to clean that up as well, so the front's got a nice even surface at least. For the estimate, we had estimated about $200,000 for the work. That's what was budgeted as well. With this time of year and with the flooding going on, we weren't certain what kind of bidding we would get. We were fortunate enough to get 4 bids, all pretty good numbers, 3 below, 1 above estimate, which was nice to see. Trailblazers Constructors was the low bid. We have not worked with them in the past. The school board hasn't either, as far as I'm aware. We asked them for the list of references, as we typically do. We've called around. You can see on here, Offutt, OPS, U.S. Army Reserve Center, Nebraska Medical Center are some of the places where they've done similar work with parking lots, sidewalks, etc. In my conversations with project managers for the different sites with the general contractors where they were subs, they didn't have any concerns with awarding for this type of a project. And then also in my conversations with Trailblazers, the president of the company, I explained the need to get in there right away with school starting up. He actually stated they could rearrange their schedule and get in there as soon as we could get them a contract, which was reassuring that they were ready to mobilize over. As such, we would recommend award of the project at $153,245.10. I will say that as we go in to remove this pavement, we may find some areas that we need to go a little bit further, that kind of a thing, as we do the cutting. But at this price point, that's a good opportunity to get a solid product in the ground. Generally, this is the schedule. The bids were received last week. We're here tonight for the board review. Contractor said they can mobilize as quickly as we asked them to, and we're looking to be done August 9th, weather permitting. Any questions?
With that, are there any questions from the board that have not been addressed? If not, we are through. We now will open up any questions from the audience regarding this public hearing. If you wish to address the board, take the podium and state your concerns. Seeing no one move on this, we will take up this in our resolution, part of the board meeting tonight. So with that, we are closing this public hearing. And now we are opening this regular board meeting for the Council Bluffs Community School District Board of Directors. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Ogres?
Present.
Mr. Minshaw? Present. Mr. McGlade?
Present.
Mr. LaFurla?
Present.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Present.
Mr. Kazire?
Present. As you're able, please rise with me to observe a moment of silence. Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before us now is the approval of our agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the agenda. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion to approve our agenda has passed. Now up is the approval of the minutes from the closed session and our regular board meeting of May 28, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the closed session and the regular board meeting of May 28th signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion is carried. Before us now is public participation. This is a time for members of the audience to address the board regarding agenda items or any items that they have of concern. With that, we'll move then next to our superintendent's report. Dr. Murillo, would you lead us through that?
Thank you again, Mr. Kozar. At this time, we're going to do our student recognitions, and Ms. Ostrowski is on vacation this evening, so you got second place here coming up to the podium, and we're going to acknowledge or recognize two terrific groups of student athletes. So in just a minute, I'll meet you over there. Well, I am pleased to invite Darby Thomas to the podium. We want to recognize her tonight for her high level of performance in the sport of track and field. This year, Darby continued her excellence at the Drake Relays, finishing the meet as a runner-up in the 100-meter dash, and first place finishes in the 100 meters and the long jump. You may recall she was the long jump champion in 2017 and 18 also. Ms. Thomas continued her successful track and field school career at the Iowa State Championship, finishing as the Iowa State Class 4A runner-up in the 100 meters and the 200 meters. We are so proud that she was also crowned the Class 4A champion in the 100-meter hurdles and the long jump. Darby finishes her career as a 3-time state champion in the long jump. As you may know, Darby has committed to the University of Nebraska and will be part of the Husker track team. We'll be able to watch her on TV next year, and we look forward to hearing about her success in the future. Please join me. I think with all those accomplishments, please join me in congratulating Darby on these accomplishments. And if I could, Darby, is your parents with you here tonight? Oh, right here's your mom. So thank you for sharing your wonderful daughter with us for the past 4 years at AL. Okay. Well, we are so proud of all of our student athletes, as you know, and they represent our district so well on and off the field. Tonight, we are honoring the 2019 Abraham Lincoln girls soccer team for making the quarterfinals of the state soccer tournament. The team had an impressive season with a record of 16-3. In addition, we had several who received state honors, including Darby Thomas, who was named to the Iowa High School Soccer Coaches Association All-State First Team, and Taryn Newman was named by the Daily Nonpareil as the Girls Soccer Player of the Year. Congratulations to these athletes. And Coach Miller, congratulations to you, and all the parents are here. And Coach Miller, would you be willing to join me at the podium to call the girls' names? So I can hand out the stars as they come in. All right, I have a few. You probably know who's here, don't you?
I do, yeah.
So 2 years in a row, right?
2 years in a row.
And it's pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting. Really impressive group.
How many seniors do you have?
6 seniors, so we're gonna miss them. They're fantastic players. Several of them. So
But you got a good group.
big group coming up. We got nine juniors coming back. So,
See? So you can't go wrong, right?
Can't go wrong.
Right. Well, it was only by one goal. One goal. So it was 3-2, right?
3-2.
I was-
First goals we've ever scored in the state tournament. So
So, yeah. You follow it on Twitter and you're like cheering. And so congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job. So if you call the girls' names, I will hand and stop chatting. Diane, will you give me the look up? I'm off script.
Paige Brocker. Camry Booth. Bailey Christensen. Maria Martinez. Claire Plummer. Alexis Pomernakis. And Darby Thomas. Yes.
When the day after Black Friday, you let me know. No. Maybe. No. No. No.
Thank you for all the support. Thank you.
When she got the ball, she took off with that flag. They said, well, they could try. It was fun to watch, I'll tell you that much. They were fun to watch.
Okay, we will,
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
that's all right.
At this time, I'd like to invite, we are going to move on to our student achievement portion of our superintendent report. And Dr. Worthman is going to join us at the podium to report on our academic plan update. As you know, we have a 3-year academic plan. This is year 2, so we're excited to see the continuing movement that we've seen in our academic area. Thank you. I don't have those.
Well, good evening. It's my pleasure to provide an update on the 2017-2020 academic plan progress up through this year's data. Just to provide a little bit of background information, the academic plan was developed in 2017 to provide a roadmap for the teaching and learning department, as well as teacher leaders, building level leadership, and building level teams to help them set goals, identify targets, monitor implementation and impact, make adjustments, and then celebrate along the way. And we certainly have some celebrations that I'm proud to share with you tonight as a result of the hard work of our buildings and our teachers that are really making progress on this academic plan. So if you remember, there were 6 goals, and I want to share updates on all 6 of them tonight and the metrics that correspond with them that show the progress we're making toward the goals. The first goal was around improving academic achievement. And as you may recall, these originally were based on both the FAST test in reading and Iowa assessments in math. And as we moved along, I promised the board that I would bring them back updated goals related to MAP. And so what you see in front of you are the same academic achievement goals, but these are based on MAP with 3% increments each year after year. And the reason I landed at 3% is that's double the rate of ordinary progress. So that would be accelerated rate. And if you recall the spring MAP presentation, we showed that we had about 1.5% increase in mathematics last year and about 4.5% increase in reading. So we certainly know that it's possible on the academic side of the house to get this type of return. So our goal in 2017-18, our baseline was 56%.
3% improvement for the 2018-19 year put us up to 59%, right where we would have expected to be in reading. In math, we fell just short of that by a couple of decimal points. The benchmark was 2017-18 was 50%. 53 would have been a 3% increase, and we were just shy of that, at about about a quarter of a point for last year. So we still believe that we're on track to hit 56 in the following year. Goal 2 was related to closing the gap in preschool services for 4-year-olds. If you recall, about 75% of our students receive some type of preschool service, and before they reach us in kindergarten, about 25% of those students receive no preschool, and 25% receive preschool outside of the Council Bluffs Community School District. So 560 is our goal to close that gap. We had a nice increase this year in the number of 4-year-olds served. It was up about 61 kids. That's mostly in part to the expansion of our Head Start grant that we were able to secure for the second year. Unfortunately, that number has been reduced by Head Start, by West Central Community Action for the following year, and we do not look for us to be able to make continued progress on this goal in the current year. Goal 3 was around ensuring that all classrooms and all students have access to high-quality core instruction. And later on this evening, you're going to hear from Melissa Chalupnik, Director of Professional Learning, who's going to talk about some improvements that we've made to the professional growth system. And as I promised earlier around the academic plan, we will be bringing you data related to the percentage of classrooms where we have high-quality instruction taking place. Melissa and her team worked with building-level leaders and building-level teacher leaders to really put together a comprehensive plan for diving deeply into teacher professional growth and performance. And the pilot group, which was a very small subset of teachers who piloted it this year, had 84% of the classrooms that used this new system scoring at distinguished and proficient on the professional growth system in terms of instruction. Now, I want to put a big fat asterisk next to this because that sample was neither random nor representative. It only included one elementary school. It included one middle school and the alternative school. So we do not know if that 84% is representative of what we would expect in the future, but I did want the board to know that it is a data point that will be tracking in the future, and we'll provide future updates on the level of instruction on the framework that Melissa's going to talk about tonight. And then we'll use that data to help set some goals for us moving forward as a school district. Our fourth goal, Mr. Hamilton has reported on several times during the school year, and that's related to improving student self-perception of their social and emotional well-being. And this goal started in 2016-17 at 68% and has remained relatively flat over the past 3 years. Mr. Hamilton and his team have taken this over, and we'll be working next year with some more concrete plans around trauma-informed care. And we look for this to continue to improve as buildings have more resources to really attack social emotional learning all the way from elementary through to our high schools. Goal 5 had 3 targets, and this was around in making sure that all students graduate future ready. The first of which was increasing the percentage of students who graduate from high school with both a high school diploma and a certificate, a diploma, or an associate's degree. And as you may recall, we were able to honor 10 of those young people in our board meeting in May, taking the number to 12, the number of students who have already met this goal. We are ahead of track, and we have 26 students who we anticipate will be graduating in the spring of 2020, which will put us well above that 30 goal. So we are ahead of the game on getting to our 50 by 2021. The second part of this goal was around increasing the percentage of students who earn a National Career Readiness Certificate. And we have, in the last 2 years, produced a record number of students scoring at the platinum level. That's the highest level of accreditation by the Work Keys assessment.
and we exceeded our goal this year. We were hoping to get to 228 students earning that certificate, and we ended up at 244, and just shy of hitting our goal 1 year early. So NCRC continues to be a goal in which we believe has merit, as it helps demonstrate for our community and for our workforce that our students are prepared and have some skills beyond the typical that are ready for our workforce. And then the third goal related to future readiness is looking at the percentage of seniors who graduate from the Council Bluffs Community School District earning some type of college credit. And we hit this goal spot on this year. 66% of our seniors earned at least some type of college credit. This includes any of the courses that they take in our high schools that are eligible for concurrent enrollment, as well as the classes that they take at the Iowa Western Community College campus, where they earn college credit. It does not include the courses that students take in our high schools through advanced placement, although some schools, post-secondary institutions, will offer credit for them when they enroll. So we believe we're on track for that next year, as we continue to offer even more CE classes in both our high schools and offer opportunities for students at Iowa Western. Our final goal, goal 6, is the lagging indicator of all of these put together, and this is increasing post-secondary enrollment rates. Our goal is to get to 60% for the class of 2020, and I'm a little disappointed that we haven't hit this one square on yet. We are about, it's 53.4, not able quite to round to 54% of the percentage of students who enroll in the fall right after their senior year. We have some variance between our two high schools, and that is certainly a focus for one of our high schools next year, is to improve so that we close the gap between our two high schools, as we've reported on that in previous board meetings. But we believe that we should be doing better on this indicator. 60% is a very attainable goal for a school district such as ours, and all of our other efforts are putting us in the situation to blow the top off of this one. So this is the one that I really want to see move this next school year, because we have everything's kind of lined up for it to improve. The second indicator is also disappointing, and that's the percentage of students who earn a degree within 6 years of graduation. And this is a lagging indicator, because the work that we're doing today will not show up for 6 years after. So when you think about the class of 2012, that was a long time ago. That was my first year in the school district. It was 2011, 2012. And so when you think about all of the work that we've done in the past 5 years around post-secondary, making post-secondary inescapable, the work that we started with our strategic plan, that Potawatomi Promise didn't even start until 2015, we know that this will continue to improve. I believe this will continue to improve, especially given that our post-secondary enrollment rates have increased since 2012. The other thing I would like to note about this is this data point is based on April 2019 data. So it does not include any student from the class of 2012 who graduated in the spring of 2019. We won't get that data until August. So I'm still hoping that we can tick that up 1% or 2.
This is a percentage of students who have graduated from high school and then completed some sort of any degree, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, in a specific time frame?
6 years.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, they have 6 years to complete. We would count them if they completed after 6 years, but 6 years is the data set that gets most often is replicated and talked about. So, I think 30 is a stretch goal for us. I do not think 30 is a stretch goal for us in starting with the class of 2015. Those are the 6 goals that we had and the progress that we've made. You can see that we have, in terms of academic achievement, I think we are absolutely on the right track. We have a lot of good things in place around making sure that students are future ready, but we still have a few data points that need to catch up to some of the work that we're doing. So I would welcome any questions that the board might have about the academic plan.
Sure, questions from the board?
That's a lot of really good work on many of those goals. I was wondering if one of those last few goals may need to be adjusted or a new goal added when we're building in apprenticeship programs and things that don't necessarily equate to post-secondary credentials, but do accelerate and put students into jobs that pay livable wages immediately after high school.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Not that I want 2020 to get here, but we're already thinking about what that next phase of the academic plan might look like once we get to 2020, and I agree with you completely. I think it will include a lot more measurements around workforce readiness and the percentage of students who are entering a paying job, entering a job or a trade or the workforce with a value-added credential. So absolutely, we're thinking about that for the kind of version 2.0, if you will, of the academic plan.
That's kind of along the lines of what Chris brought up. I guess what I was wondering was that your 6.2, would that potentially include apprenticeships?
So the way that the National Clearinghouse reports this data, it does not.
Okay.
Unless they end up with some type of credential from an accredited university or college. Which, to Chris's point, and to, I believe what's your point, we've got to figure out how to quantify those as well.
Probably the most, is there anything out this that was just
This one is the most disappointing for me, just because I know we're doing better work than that. And it just hasn't caught up with the work that we're doing. When you're looking 6 years in the rearview mirror, and I wish that students that graduated today were in the seats that graduated in 2012. I wish that those kids had the same opportunities as those kids do today. I mean, think about 2012. I mean, several of you were on the board. We were still really trying to chase 75% graduation rate. In my first year in the district, we were celebrating because I believe we hit 75 that year.
What's it say on there?
Yeah, so
I was gonna say, what's it,
Yeah,
2012?
it was 75.
Yeah.
1.7.
So that was my first goal when I was hired as director of secondary ed in 2011-12, was how do we hit 80? What are we gonna do to get to 80? I'll be honest with you, we weren't really focusing on, are we preparing kids for post-secondary? Are we making sure that they graduate with value-added credential? Are we focusing on career and technical education? That's really not where our focus was. And so this indicator reminds me that we still have work to do, and that there's hope. There's hope because we have done a lot of things since 2012 to improve this indicator.
I would expect that to jump significantly over the next several years, but you are increasing post-secondary enrollment,
Yes.
so going in the right direction there.
Number of classes students are taking for college credit.
Yeah, that number has grown tremendously just in the past 3 years. I mean, 14% increase since 2017 is significant.
With the NCRC, are you seeing a shift with each high school and maybe seeing where work is being done really well in one school that could help mentor the other school?
I still think the NCRC is underutilized. Specifically underutilized when we look outside of education, where we haven't quite cracked into business and industry, into helping them see that this provides basically a credential that tells them that they can count on that student to have certain requisite skills. And there are some communities around the country where an NCRC certificate gets you an additional bump in pay or gets you on the fast track for a promotion. And we're not quite there yet in Council Bluffs, but we still believe that this is a great way for us to show both our stakeholders and our community at large that we're producing graduates that are ready for that next step into the workforce.
Are any of those communities in Iowa?
Not that I know off the top of my head.
Strange, since this is an ACT product.
It is an ACT product. Yes, it is. Yeah. Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Vorthman.
Yeah, thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to move into our informational presentations and ask Mr. Dave Fringer to join me. He's going to do the annual technology and library media report this evening. Mr. Fringer, the floor is yours.
Good evening. It is again my opportunity in June each year to address the board and talk a little bit about what's been going on in the technology department over the course of the last year. And Dr. Murillo always helps me whittle it down to keep it to keep it clear and concise, because I feel like that, you know, we're very, very active and busy and have a lot of things I'd like to talk to you about. So I focused in on a couple of things, and I'd like to let you know that on the library media side of the house, there's a comprehensive report in your board packet, but there's no specific content in the presentation tonight about that. We are lucky, however, that Mrs. Lisa Schwartz happened to come to the meeting tonight. She's the district's library media program lead, and I don't know if she came to see Darby Thomas get her award, as her husband might be the track coach at Abraham Lincoln, or if she came for this. I don't know. But if there are questions at the end of the presentation about library media or anything that was contained therein, she would be able to answer those questions, which is actually great. My focus is going to be on department goal progress. Each year, our teams set goals for themselves. We measure ourselves against our own performance and the performance of others, and I'm going to share how we did this year based on our articulated goals. I'm specifically talking about 3 technology teams: the system support team that takes care of all of our software and data systems, from our finance and HR systems to our student information systems, state reporting, all of that systems work. Our network and user support team that keeps the network running, the computers working on our network, and also keeps us safe from cyber attack. And finally, the instructional technology team, that group of individuals who works directly in buildings with teachers on improving instruction using technology. So I'll start with System 2, and they set 2 specific goals this year. The first one was around cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a moving target, as you know. You're always opening the newspaper and seeing something going on with big companies like Target or small organizations like school districts right here in Iowa, where there's been data loss or data ransoms or student information privacy violations and those types of things. We are susceptible to that like anyone else, but we try as hard as we can to put barriers in place. And this year we did 3 different things related to cybersecurity, implementing systems that will help keep our students and our information safe and secure. Systems team goal 2 was to work with all departments and create a comprehensive plan for identity management for both staff and students. And you might say, what's identity management? Everybody has a name. In our systems, and I can't even begin to count the number of systems that require some sort of user authentication, either a student to log in or a staff member to log in. All of those require user IDs and passwords. Passwords are the single most compromised and vulnerable, part of the human being is what keeps us vulnerable. So having really good identity management systems in place. A good example is we're getting ready to bring online integrated door access at the Madison campus and then Kern and Wilson. There's one more thing that we need to keep track of: who is in our systems and coming and going. So the systems team is continuing to work on this. It's not a completed goal, but we've made significant progress this year in narrowing in on ways to both make it easy for people to log in, so we're not killing our staff with all kinds of IDs and passwords, but also making sure that what we're doing is secure and safe to keep our information safe and our students safe from perpetrators. The network and user support team had 3 goals. Cybersecurity. Oh, you know what? I totally got in front of myself. I already talked about cybersecurity. The other systems team goal was related to Mr. Wilson's project in the finance department and Mr. Milborn's project in the HR department, which was implementation of the new Tyler iVision's project, which we had online, running beautifully by January 1st. And I apologize for getting myself out of order. I already talked about the cybersecurity goal. It's really a combination of systems and network and user support in that case. User support specifically, we have some pretty lofty metrics that we collect every year about our ability to provide excellent customer service and satisfaction and resolution of incidents quickly. And we have an articulated 24-hour support time on some very specific teacher-related items, and it's very important to us that we maintain a high level of customer service there, and we have done that. We're getting into the high 90s and, you know, hovering in that 97-98% range. The specific data is in your board packet. So it's hard for me to articulate an increase every year, but we want to keep that really, really high level of customer service so that our teachers can teach and our students can learn, and technology is not a barrier. The second user support goal, if you want to know who was nervous on state testing day and on MAP testing day, it might have been the teachers and students a little bit, but the IT directors nervous as can be because we're doing all of this computer assisted testing now. The students are the tests are administered on the computers, and it is not without challenge to do that with large numbers of people on our computer networks. And I can report, you know, we set this goal and I was nervous. We achieved nearly seamless testing, especially on the state test this year with virtually no network-caused interruption. There was a very small vendor-caused interruption at Kern that disrupted a little bit of one morning, but for the number of students that we had, we were very, very successful and actually exceeded our expectations. So that goal will continue to be there as we want to provide that good experience. I know the teaching and learning team is also nervous on test day, wondering how I'm doing. So anyway, we were very successful there, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that John Stile and his team has done really good work in that area. Then our third team where we set goals is our instructional technology team. And you may recall last year that I stood here in front of you with our Clarity data, and I told you about this goal at that time. We were also announcing some changes in staffing in the district, and that team went from 5 individuals to 4 individuals, really to help us get right with the budget. And I was, you know, nervous about that, but we, I think, have proved that small and mighty is possible. The goal that we set last year was indicated by our data collection around connected experiences. And that's when students have the opportunity to connect outside of our school district to experts and authors and primary sources. I know that you had the opportunity to see some National History Day students here. Their primary sources were all connected by technology. The students can't travel to Texas to interview a primary source, but it sure is easy with technology. So we think those experiences are important for all of our students in all of our content areas, so we went after it this year. And by going after it, by setting a very specific target, we were able to do some really good work, I think. Last year I stood here and said that 37% of our students reported having such experiences in their classroom, and this year it's nearly 60%. 59% of students reported via the Bright Bites Clarity and Technology Survey. This is not observation, it's data collection direct from the students, and we had only set the goal to be 50%. So we learned 2 things. One, that when you focus on something and really apply effort, you can move the needle, and we demonstrated that on this. And we also got a lot of teachers excited about the future and what they would be able to provide in their classrooms. One of the best examples was an opportunity that took place at Longfellow Elementary School where they connected with an oceanographer, with a marine biologist, an oceanographer in Scotland, and learned about waste, plastic waste in our oceans. And those students, I think they were 4th grade students, if I recall right, had the opportunity not just to connect that time, but now the teachers are connected in an ongoing way with that whole organization. So those are examples of, you know, I could go on and on about that, but powerful experiences that are articulated by technology. I think that picture is actually from that day, the picture on the slide. So the other thing that we do, and there's a lot more numbers in your board packet, is we also collect tallies or a quantified analysis of how many quality contacts our coaches have with teachers. And remember, we only have 4 instructional technology FTEs, and we ask them to have quality interactions with teachers that make a difference. So our criteria is that when they're working with teachers and they want to count it, it has to align to an articulated technology grade level expectation. Our core curriculum in science, math, language, and social studies have specific technology components. We don't teach technology separately. It's an embedded part of core instruction. And there are grade level expectations throughout those core subjects in technology. The criteria also suggest that it has to involve co-planning or modeling or formal professional development. It's not just a walk by, I talked to you about it in the hallway. It's something meaningful and ongoing. And it has some sort of a documented outcome, that there's actually evidence that something happened, some sort of practice changed, and that it suggests that it could be ongoing. So that's what we look for to tally quantitatively. And the numbers in the columns don't matter so much. I really want to direct your attention to the bottom right-hand corner. And we tallied this year, and I do some qualitative analysis to make sure that what we're tallying is in fact quality. 430 what we would call quality contacts with teachers or experiences with teachers that made a difference. 410 to 430 doesn't sound like such a great jump until you take 5 FTEs and reduce them to 4. And I was very, very pleased to see, and I think we're getting our legs under us as a team too. This was our second year together as a team. So I was pleased by that 430 as it represents about 100 quality contacts per instructional coach. The other thing we do, and again, your board packet was full of data from the Clarity Technology and Learning Survey. It's really the preeminent way to measure technology department efficiency in school districts across the nation. Thousands of districts participate. And I have great news. We've been doing this survey since 2012-13, and I've been reporting numbers to you. The CASE composite score is 1104, and it's made up of 4 smaller or 4 components of that composite score: classroom, access, skills, and environment. And you'll look to the left, you'll see a color-coded scale with gray being beginning. That's the lowest if you're 800 or below on their scale, all the way up to the dark purple color, exemplary. And we are exemplary in access. That's the easiest one. You authorized us to buy a whole bunch of computers, and that's awesome. We appreciate that. We are advanced in the skills area. Environment follows classroom, is what I've learned. And the important number I want to point out is the CASE composite of 1104 is the highest ever in the district. We've been on a slow climb, over the last 6 or 7 years, but that 1104 puts us in some rare air with some school districts, the best of the best school districts, honestly. Less than 25% of the districts in the nation would be considered an advanced school district. And to be honest, exemplary is very, very rare. It's less than 5%, although we do hope to get there. And this is really good news, and we always have to take time to celebrate this on the team, because there's one number that continues to bug us, and it's the classroom number. And it's increasing, and we're doing better each year, but it's a part of the measurement that's really the most important. Anybody can buy computers, provide professional learning. It's really when it's implemented in the classroom and you see that number, we want that number to also be advanced, to be teal. So as I've said in the past, we always set goals every year, and we're going to set some goals again this year around that classroom area that I just articulated. A little bit more good news. The red box at the bottom is the Council Bluffs Community School District scores, and above that are the all teaching and learning. That means every school and student in the United States who took the assessment or the evaluation tool, and then the Iowa schools, the Iowa average, and many, many schools in Iowa use this because it's supported by the AEAs, which we're very thankful for. You'll notice that in all areas, we exceed both the national and Iowa scores in all areas. We're very proud of that. Yet, classroom lags behind nationwide, and it really lags behind in Iowa. You'll notice that an Iowa classroom is pink. It's hard. That demonstrates how hard it is to move there. Even though it's hard, we're going to try to move there. A couple of other things from the survey that I'll point out quickly is that our teachers believe that technology use can enhance learning. So it's not about convincing our teachers that it's a good idea. 85% of our teachers responded affirmatively that, yeah, we believe that it can be an accelerator of student learning. And the second metric is teachers report, the same 85%, that they want to know more. They want to know more about effective technology use for teaching and learning. So this is good news. We don't have obstacles in our classroom in terms of teachers who are dragging their feet or don't want to participate. What we really need is some focus, a lot like what we brought this year to Connected Experiences. So you'll notice this comes from the Clarity Survey, and the details aren't that important. It's a list of school buildings and colors. And you'll notice there's a lot of pinks there. There's also some oranges, which is okay, and you'll even notice a couple of grays. And this is related to the teacher and student use of the 4 Cs, or 21st century skills: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. This said something to our team when we evaluated our data. We don't like pink at all. We don't want to see any pink on there. We want to at least see the teals, and we'd like to see some exemplary as well. Carter Lake Elementary School, student use of the 4 Cs, is the only school that's advanced. Everybody else is less than that. So we're going to go after this. This is what we're going to do. So when we got into our goal setting and we saw this, we decided that our instructional technology goal for next year would be around the classroom, specifically in attacking the 4 Cs. We already have technology GLEs. We're not making up something to do. We're just going to focus on some of the things that are already articulated: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity, that are already embedded in our core curriculums. We are going to try a different model next year of service to our schools, a differentiated service model. We're going to embed coaches in the buildings that have need, and we're going to focus on core instruction using the district's articulated curriculum materials. As you may know, in language arts at the elementary school and through 6th grade, we use WonderWorks. And in math, we're beginning to implement a math curriculum, Bridges. Both are excellent research science-based curriculums that we can accelerate with technology integration, keeping in mind that we want to integrate with fidelity those curriculums. It's not adding something. It's looking where we can use what's articulated already and make it better, and also meet our grade level expectations. So our traditional delivery model, essentially what we did, we had 4 coaches in 15 buildings. We took 4 divided by 15, so everybody got 3 or 4 buildings, and the coaches would spend a day or a little more a week there. We've done that with instructional technology coaching for quite some time, no matter what the numbers are. And what we saw in our classroom data was it's okay. We're doing well in our data collection, but not so great in the classroom area. So we tried something different this year. We took one of our instructional coaches, and we tried what we called an embedded model. 4 elementary principals essentially volunteered to do this, where they would have that coach all day, every day for a quarter, for 9 straight weeks. So 4 buildings shared a coach. The difference being, in this case, it was Mr. Chase Piper. He was at the buildings: Carter Lake, Hoover, Franklin. And he was there every single day for 9 weeks. What we learned about the advantages is that creating strong relationships, attending building leadership meetings, participating in professional learning and PLCs, but the main thing is meeting with the principal regularly. The other thing I would say is we're just finishing our data consults, where we're meeting with the principals and talking to them about their data. And Dr. Murillo asked them, what can we do to support you? And those principals are saying, this embedded model is what we want. So we're going to give them what they want. We have asked our principals, we've tried it out, and we're going to do that next year. And we're going to do that based on the colors you see on the map are going to get more time and more focused attention, an embedded model. And that's not to suggest that every school won't have some access to a technology coach, because they will. But there will be places where that technology coach is there practically every day and meets with the principal every day for a semester or a quarter. And we're going to base semester or quarter on need, on what we see in the data, and also the principal's willingness and want to have that person in their building. So those assignments are almost done, but they're not ready to be shared with you quite yet. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to assign based on need and want, and we're going to change those colors. We'll know we're successful when we see those colors change. from gray to pink to orange and hopefully to teal over the course of the next couple years. So that's what we're going after next year as a goal, and I would welcome any questions that you have about anything that was in the packet, the extra board or the extra supplemental reports I attached, or if you have questions for Mrs. Schwartz about the library program.
Questions from the board?
So I have a question on, so explain to me the embedded coach who's at one of these schools every day.
Yep.
And is he flitting between 4 schools every day, but he's
No.
always at those schools, or is it one school for
It's
9 weeks? and he
one
goes to the
school a
next
day for 9 weeks, all day, every day for 9 weeks.
And when he leaves, so then what's his coverage at school like after that?
We call it the consultative model. We have 3 instructional technology coaches and an instructional technology program lead. The coaches really are going to focus on this embedded model and being there every day and, you know, building capacity while they're there for work to continue. But when questions arise, that's when we leverage our instructional technology program lead, who also has a building assignment, but a lighter building assignment, to react to those, you know, requests for assistance.
What did we see as a lift? I know we like it, but what was the quantitative? Was there a lift we could?
At the 4 buildings that we targeted, the number of quality contacts was 1.7 times higher than the quality contacts at the other buildings.
Just curious, you mentioned several times technology use is a broad category. What does that look like in the school? Is it varying every school, every classroom, or is there an overall?
Certainly, there is variance from school to school and classroom to classroom, and that's what we'd like to eliminate to some degree in providing, you know, more concentrated effort directly aligned with the curriculums we teach, rather than, you know, really cool drop-in experience. It's a connected experience is a really powerful, cool experience, but it's only going to happen once or twice a year. It's an event rather than something that becomes part of your daily practice. We would like to see the tools, whether they be the software tools or the physical computer tools, implemented in a more predictable way. I think there'll always be more variance in technology or computer use based on teachers, but we'd like to narrow that in somewhat and make sure that there's equitable access to technology, not just because you're lucky that you got that teacher, but that there's a baseline of competency for all teachers in our district.
And so are the teachers of like class, like year, grade, makeup, where are they using the same technologies? I mean, is there collaboration on the technologies they're using so that we have
Yes.
consistency?
Yeah, we have a teacher technology advisory committee that encompasses representation from all roles and all content areas, and we visit about specific tools, and we actually have some metrics now because of something we put in place with technology and learning to see the quantity of use of particular products. And in some cases, there are things that we're seeing that we don't necessarily like. You know, we'll see that teachers are using a lot of X or Y, which are not really aligned to or supported. We're not telling teachers to not be creative, but we're also suggesting that they use tools that we can support them with. And Dr. Worthman and I have looked at some data and saw a couple of things. We went, there's something that we need to do something different. So it's not just what you're doing, but it's also being able to know how to redirect, what might not be the best practice.
And then, how are our best achieving classrooms doing, schools doing on these surveys? Just curious.
It's interesting. When we look specifically, for example, at map data, and I've had the opportunity to do that through the data consults, we still have a few schools to go. I would say that there's not high correlation between high achieving schools and high scores. We have low achieving schools with higher case scores. We also have lower achieving schools, there's not a pattern. Sometimes there's an inverse relationship, but most typically the schools that score well on the case assessment are also higher achieving, but it's not a one-to-one correlation at all.
And is the classroom number that we've that we have concern over? Does that have any correlation? I mean, is there any metric that does correlate?
I believe that the classroom construct correlates most closely to our classroom practice. And as we move that class number towards exemplary, that classroom number towards exemplary, I think then you'll see the correlation between the technology use and student achievement become more closely related to each other.
Like, I would assume for a lot of classrooms, this is how you're delivering your instruction.
Certainly it
I'm
is.
not, like in the old days, I'd have textbooks, and I'd have other different things that were guiding that.
WonderWorks has really powerful technology components that are included in the technology package, and the Bridges program is an online program. I mean, the resources are online. So, yes, technology is critical in delivering both of those curriculum models.
Is the teacher use of the 4 Cs out there that's an emerging or emerging piece in here, is that tied to a lack of training, PD? What is that we're not?
Our
getting the
data
level we want?
suggests that our skills are high, our teacher skills are high. I think what we need to bridge is how to use those in high-quality instruction. Not for event-based or, fun but not aligned activities. It's really about becoming more focused on delivering the core curriculum with good practice than it is, we have some teachers who do some amazing fun things that I think are not aligned in a meaningful way to the core curriculum.
And I guess I'll keep asking questions.
Sure.
So, we talked about some things I'd say, what else should we be doing? What else should we be chasing or adapting? I mean, is there?
This is a school district with limited resources, and as every organization is, I would love to have an instructional technology coach for about every 500 students. If you do the math, that's 18 of them. That is a pie in the sky dream. If I changed the ratio to 1,000 and had 9, that'd be even better. I do think, and it was demonstrated by having that person embedded at those 4 sites, that it can make a difference. It made a difference in their case scores. It also made a difference in getting the principals to buy in and learn what to look for. I said this to somebody today, it's about coaching the principals as much as it is coaching the teachers. And I think the embedded model suits that the best. Now, knowing that, going 4 to 9 is not possible, I would say that we need to focus on as much quality professional learning as we can after school via our CBU at our summer academy. We're going to discuss this year trying to create online modules that directly tie to our curriculum that teachers could do on their own time. But high quality is the key to that and aligned to our curriculum, not just how to use tools, but how to use the tools effectively with the curriculum resources that we provide.
Yeah, how do our TLC coaches, mentors, how does that fit in with relationships with the instructional coaches, with the other supports we have? I'm just curious.
Again, it was reported by the principals and the coaches specifically that when the technology coach is embedded at the building, it gives them an opportunity to collaborate directly with the math coach and the language arts coach because they're there every day. I think the drop-in, drop-out model is less effective because you might get to collaborate with those people, but you might not. They may be busy doing their work, and the natural times to cross-pollinate don't exist in that model as well as they do in the embedded model. The instructional technology coach really becomes a third member of the instructional coaching team, and meeting with teachers and grade level teams and PLCs can take place, which doesn't happen in the drop-in model.
And so your 4 schools you chose that were your test pilot subject, where they were those schools that were asking for that? Were those schools we identified and said, you know what, there's something missing here, we feel we should add to the mix, or how did we pick that?
No, it was actually an idea we picked up in Sioux City, where they're doing something similar, and we brought it back and essentially asked for principal volunteers. And we were happy that we had enough to do it, because there was some skepticism about it. I don't know how that'd work, if, And all 4 of the principals affected have been standing up in front of their peers and saying, this is the way to go, and let me tell you why. We've seen that over and over.
Did we see any, so when would we be able to quantify any, I know we saying we don't see correlations between achievement and actually
I think
how we're
it's,
using this,
I
but
think
when
it's,
will we be able to see maybe that has an impact on student learning, that then we say, okay, we really do need an instructional coach in every school, or we really do need something, because, that's what I'd want to see is, okay, let's have one school that's struggling in this, put somebody in there all year long and see how that can dramatically change.
I think the correlation will increase as the classroom score approaches 1,100. I think you'll start to see high-achieving buildings with higher technology case scores. And for those buildings who are not as high-achieving, I think that their case score in the area of classroom will lag behind. That's an expert opinion, and we all have one, but I believe that that's what you'll see.
Have you seen schools that are declining in their scores?
No, actually,
So when they're learning at the building, that sustains.
yeah,
And they
and
either
it's,
grow or maintain.
and it's actually, all buildings are increasing. If you looked at the trend line since 2012, 13 for all buildings, they're all on the up. It's just not as steep a curve as I'd like to see. Some buildings have a steeper trend line up, and middle schools and high schools do have much steeper upward trend lines. And it is elementary schools that are lagging behind, and that's where we're gonna go.
I think one of the reasons you've been so successful, because I can tell you're very committed to collaboration, and it shows in the presentation. I did have a question about the technology GLEs.
Yep.
Those were a collaboration. You partnered with many departments to create those. And so those GLEs are unique to our district.
Yeah,
But are technology GLEs unique in curriculum in other districts, or
they're
is everybody doing that?
They're unique to our district in that we wrote our own to align with our curriculum, but ISTE, which is the International Society for Technology and Education, publishes standards, and we sure used them. You would see a lot of what ISTE does in our standards, so we've not created the wheel, but we've done what we think is best and take the best from, and, the American Association of School Librarians is another source, I had to make sure that I was quoting that right, is another source of technology standards that we also used in implementing. We kind of made a hybrid from the best of the best, we think. But the most important thing is that it aligns to our curriculum. It's not just technology for technology.
Could I just make a comment? I compliment you and your staff and our teachers and principals for making this technology work and all the progress you've had. It's a big deal to be in the top 1/4 of the nation.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people in Council Bluffs know that. And it's another time, I think we should brag a little. So, well done.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I agree
Appreciate
with
that.
you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
thank you
Prater.
very much.
Yes. Nice work being done. At this time, I'm going to invite Mrs. Melissa Chalupnik and Mr. Mark Schultz to join me at the podium. Melissa is going to present the professional growth system for certified staff, and then Mark is going to follow up with discussing the growth system for building administrators. So Melissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, it's my pleasure to be here to really share an overview of our certified staff professional growth system. And when I say certified staff, that's our nurses, teachers, counselors that have a certificate to practice in the state of Iowa. And you'll see who all those people are later on. So about 3 years ago, we began to see a need to really review our professional growth system. You have the professional growth booklet, and there's a long history, about 15 years since we've last revised it. So we wanted to make sure that it was current with our practices and ongoing feedback. We wanted to get a product and a process out there that aligned with where our district is heading. So the first thing we did as a team is it was an administrative team. We knew we had to get teachers on board. So we reached out and got some teachers' voices at the table. And the reason I have their names here on this slide is this is our professional growth system task force. These group of individuals really help to guide and care for the system. We could not have done it without them. We had great teachers that were helping us all along the way. The next thing that this group did is we decided we should do some listening sessions to hear how teachers feel about our current system and then what they want a new system to look like. So we conducted listening sessions at all of our buildings, and we really asked a couple different questions. One was, tell us about a time where you received personal coaching that helped you grow as a professional. And then another question was, tell us about a time when an evaluation system or a process helped to improve your instruction. So from those listening sessions, 4 themes emerged. One being, our teachers want meaningful, ongoing feedback. They really crave an administrative coaching relationship that's giving them that feedback. They also want their feedback to be more formative in nature. They don't want a lot of big events. They want the principal in there more often, providing them support. And then also those clear and consistent expectations. It is critical that the teacher and the principal have a target to work toward. So if we have those clear and consistent expectations, just like the teachers wanted, principals want them as well, then we can reach our goals for increased student achievement. So once we listened to the teachers and we got some ideas of where we should head, we focused on really 3 things. Process, we needed a clearly articulated process. A product had to be transparent, and we needed to differentiate. We have a lot of teachers in our district that don't necessarily always work with children. They have supporting roles, like Dave just said, working with teachers. So we needed to differentiate the system. So in our process, we had some early implementers that Dr. Vorthman spoke about, and bless these early implementers. They worked really hard with our team to make the system the best that it could be. They provided me feedback. We helped tweak forms, all that good stuff. We also knew we had to provide systemic professional learning. So this approach would be rolling it out in stages. So I developed some online modules that when teachers were ready to develop different parts of the system, they could access it, principals could show it during PD. We'll follow that same system when we do it in August. Teachers also wanted detailed visuals, so we made sure we included those. Those are in your really long professional growth system handbook. But it was really important for teachers that it was clear. They didn't want any guesses about where they were in the system. And then a growth-based component. That's what we heard from teachers. They wanted components in that system that will be more frequent and ongoing. Next was the product. The team landed on the Danielson framework. This is also a state-approved instructional framework. And in the Danielson framework, she outlines 4 major domains for instruction, and you can see them there. So under those 4 domains, there's also components, which illustrate some of under planning and preparation, and then some elements that teachers get after. So with the Danielson framework, it also provides rubrics for each of the components under the domains. So the rubrics clearly articulate what good instruction looks like. Teachers can see it and administrators can see it, and you can set goals. Also the frontline system, that was part of our product. We knew we wanted it to be an online system. Our district uses Frontline for a number of platforms, so we are able to tap into that system as well. It's secure and it streamlines our work. And then differentiation. like I mentioned before, all of those certified staff members, and I have a list of them here, they all have different roles in our district, and they all deserve a system that aligns to their roles, so we were able to provide that. New teachers, we know that new teachers have a steep learning curve when they come into the profession. So we extracted what we're calling the essential 10. So out of the 22 components, we pulled out 10 of them that we think are essential to first and second year teachers. If they can master those within 2 years, they have a solid foundation for instruction. And then administrative coaching. That needed to be clear and transparent, especially with our awareness plans and assistance plans. You'll see flowcharts that are clearly articulated. If an instructor is in need of assistance, then we have a plan for them. And then next steps, in August, I will be working with administrators on the system. So I call this training, not professional learning. We have been engaged in professional learning with the rubrics, but this training will really be, how do I get in? How do I see my teachers? How do I do the GROW system? Then I will launch an overview to all certified staff at Summer Academy. All those people you saw on that slide, they're helping. System and process training to the modules for staff, again, have those developed for staff. So when they're ready to develop a professional development plan, they can go to the module, watch a video, and they'll feel comfortable doing that. Mark and Julie, we are going to be working on ongoing rubric calibration. It's so critical that principals are all on the same page with what good instruction looks like. This will help us, but it's also important that if a teacher goes from building A to building B, they're still receiving the same feedback to get to that target. And then our task force will still convene quarterly. I rely on them for feedback. I need to know what's happening as a team. And then in January through June, might take a while, we'll be transitioning this to human resources. I led the team as part of a task force, but with the sensitivity of information, it truly does live in human resources, but I will always be there to provide technical support. Any questions or comments?
Questions from the board?
I think the rubrics are great because it's very transparent between the educator and the mentor, and so it provides that guidance on how to have quality instruction.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that out. The listening session, that was loud and clear. We want to know what it looks like, and then we can get the feedback to get us there. Yeah.
Is it just the principals that are providing the coaching and evaluations? Or is it, there other administrators or?
Yeah, so I supervise mentors. So mentors fall into that certified
Okay.
category. So they were part of our early implementer group. Our early implementers were those principals on the list. They did it with their buildings, which is why it wasn't so random and not so representative. But yeah, so anybody who supervises behavior consultants, counselors, everybody will be doing it.
On average, how many certified staff are assigned to each evaluator?
Well, so what's interesting is our elementary buildings might have 30,
Yeah.
secondaries around 100. But they split them up among their assistant principals, so it doesn't make them so many. And also when you think about what year in the cycle they're in, not every year are they getting like a summative review or a formal observation. So it makes it a little more manageable for them.
Okay.
And we built that into the professional growth system handbook, that if a principal gets a little off kilter, like, wow, I have a lot of teachers in this category, they have an option of shifting that.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering is just, you know, how every person that's providing that coaching and feedback is able to handle the workload and really provide that meaningful, ongoing coaching and support.
Honestly, the great thing about it, they're already doing it. They do it every day.
Right.
So really, this is formalizing some of that ongoing feedback we've been working on for a year. is just putting it into the system and recording it.
Yeah.
We'll finish up the presentation then with Mr. Schultz, and he'll do a high-level overview of our principal work.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Merlo, Mr. Kazire, and board. It's my pleasure to present some information about the new principal professional growth system. I'm going to start off with about a year ago, we had a team of principals that got together, and we reviewed our current system and really identified that it was important to develop something more useful that was going to focus more on development and growth of the principal, not just an evaluation at the end of the year. So that was the purpose of this team that we put together. So like Melissa shared, our team had a large representation of principals in the school district at all levels. We had elementary principals, middle school, high school, and then we also had the executive directors of elementary and secondary on that team to help support the development of the work. So let me tell you a little bit about the process. So we first identified a vision, and our vision was we didn't just want to have a system that was just checking boxes, end of the year, a hoop to jump through. The will of the team was identifying a system that really would help principals grow and develop to be high-performing leaders. Because we believe to operationalize our vision of graduating from high school with a second certificate, that you've got to have a high-performing leader in every building to ensure that gets done. And so it's very critical work that we did. So with that vision, we did some research, and we looked at the current Iowa evaluation system that we have. We looked at the newer national system for principals, and then we actually went down to Hillsborough County in Florida to do a little field trip. Very high-performing school district that has a very, very detailed professional growth system for principals. So we got a chance to work side by side with the authors of that, and we talked with them. We saw their materials, and we were able to use some of that material and bring it back to our team. So one of the things, once we did all that work, we identified some core domains that we felt were at the core of our work and very essential for growth of all building leaders. So we identified these domains, and it was very important, as Melissa just shared with you, with the Danielson framework. We felt it was very important to align some language with the framework. Since principals are going to be using that for the first time with teachers, it just made sense to align it. And so what we did is we used the language like domains, components, and elements that have that same hierarchy like the teacher system has. And so we identified 3 key domains here that we felt were critical for high-performing leaders. And the domains are management, instruction, and culture. And they're all also in your board packet in that handbook if you want to look deeper at those. So you may know our school improvement plans. We focus on 2 key areas, academic and culture. So seeing management might, make you look, management's different for us. But our team really thought it was critical that that a principal has a well-managed building and has the skills to do that. If the management of the building is not strong, then we know instruction and culture are going to be impacted in a negative way. So it was pretty, the will of the group was we need management, instruction, and culture. Those 3 have to be present. So let me show you a little sample. So domain is the big parent, and under a domain there are a few components in each of those domains. So this one here on instruction, the component would be focused on assessment. And under a component there are some elements that we coach towards, and we really support principals to be able to develop that skill. And this example is using assessment data appropriately to monitor progress and improve instruction. And that's really a core element under that domain. And even below that, there's a rubric like Melissa shared with you. that you'll see in your packet that has very specific, like implementation and impact data that you would look for too, like teachers, so they know exactly what it looks like to do it well. And we always hear that, just, we want to develop towards a target, but we have to like identify what it looks like to do it well. That's only fair. So some key features of the system for administrators is that we do start off with that clear target. A new principal to our school district, we can say, here are our expectations. Here's what we're going to coach you towards. So it's not, I mean, they know from the start. When we're even hiring and doing interviews, we have a document that we can say, this is what Leadership in Council Bluffs is all about. We didn't have that before, so we're very excited. We know it's going to have some meaningful ongoing feedback from the coaches. Julie and myself, when we go out and work with buildings, we're coaching principals weekly. It's ongoing, meaningful feedback, but now it's specifically tied to these key components and elements under the domains. And having that coaching relationship is obviously critical. It's the same thing that teachers want. Teachers want a principal that's going to listen and learn alongside with them and help support them. Well, principals want the same thing. I mean, they want to learn and grow, and they want to know what they are going to be expected to do. Something that's going to be unique about this system is each principal is going to identify a specific goal, and it's going to be tied to student achievement. And they're going to be identifying that within our Dr. Murillo's superintendent goals in that area, and then we're going to use that also to link their evaluation with that. So we're going to start with principals, and that was the will of the team, is that we believe high-performing principals get high achievement, and those are tied together. So key features there. We also did, like the teacher professional growth system, we're doing some differentiation. So each principal is going to be coached where they are at the time. And we've got veteran principals, we've got some principals with 1, 2, 3 years experience. They need different things. And so when Julie and I go out and coach, we're going to provide some support on what they need at the time. And we're going to use the document and we're going to use the materials to really identify where they are in relation to the standard and how far away they are. Always trying to close that gap with our feedback. Having that goal set at the beginning of the year, it's going to be collaborative. We're going to be constantly coaching and focusing on that as well. We also have a performance improvement plan that's part of the system, that if a principal is struggling and not able to meet the proficient goals that we have, there'll be a more of a formal plan to provide some more support to help them to improve. And then we had to do some stealing from Melissa's team when they did the working with Danielson framework. We identified some essential elements that new principals and assistant principals will be required and expected to meet. Being an assistant principal, not quite the same high expectations as the head principal, and so it's going to be a little bit different elements that we expect them to be accountable for, and then a newer administrator as well moving through that. So that was a way to be able to differentiate that too. So then our next steps, really, we're going to do our goal setting in August with principals and identify that collaboratively with coach, and then we're just going to jump in. We're going to implement this system in the 1920 school year, and then we're really going to listen to how it went in May of next year to see what revision might be needed based on feedback and how it went with us. And then hopefully we'll get into that frontline system so we can manage it more electronically there, and then release some of that to HR, because like Melissa said, there is some sensitive information in there. And right now we've got some nice systems with Google Docs, and we're sharing things like that. But our system has those in place that we want to transition to that front line. But right now, the teaching one is a priority to get that in there. So what questions might you have or comments about the principal professional growth system?
I think they might have asked. They're so similar to the teachers that I think that
By design,
questions might have been answered already.
Right.
Well, I want to thank Melissa and Mark again for their leadership on this, and Julie. It is a big lift. It's a heavy lift, but it is so needed in a district because you take away the guessing, you get a clear focus, and you get your goals in place, and you're moving and supporting, and it's not a gotcha. So thank you so much for your work. And that concludes our superintendent's report.
Okay. Next up, we move to our resolution section of the board meeting. We have a second reading for policies that is our first item in the resolutions. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the second reading of the policies and the only required reading of the administrative regulations as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I had a question on the bullying harassment form. Looks amazingly simplified without all the little check boxes. Does that just become more of a discussion, this document on the backside, or what's going on there?
No, it did become a lot simpler, and that was by design. Because that's really the complaint form that parents or anybody who has witnessed bullying is filling out. So the things that's marked out there, that really wasn't important to us. We want them to be able to easily report that they've seen bullying, what they think is bullying, and then we'll do the investigation. And then on our disclosure form, we answer all those questions. So the investigator is answering those questions there if it was a law violation and then how it was a law violation. So we really wanted to just make it simple for parents or students to fill out.
And then that would lead, I assume, would free you up from running down a certain road because they put, oh, obviously it was age
Correct.
discrimination, this and that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, we'll move to the vote. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll regarding the approval of the second reading of our policies?
And I have opened up the online voting if anybody wants to use that.
Thank you.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes,
Mr. Kazire?
Yes. And the motion has been approved. Next up is the professional growth systems that we were just educated on. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the professional growth systems for certified staff principals and central office administrators.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the roll call of the acceptance of the professional growth systems. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
yes,
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes, and the motion has been approved. We have now before us the approval of the employee handbook for the 2019-2020 school year. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve the handbook as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I had a question on the, maybe this has always been this part of their contract. It just seemed weird to me, the year of service part where it's 50% plus I'm guessing a day automatically is a year of service.
And Mr. Milburn can join me. We had a lot of questions around that, and we sought out to kind of clarify that for our staff. And so, Mr. Milburn, I'll let you discuss how we talked with Dr. Laffey and came to kind of that.
Yeah, we reached out to a few different districts to see kind of what the industry standard was on that. School districts that we reached out to all were in agreement that over 50% equaled a year of service, which impacts can impact movement on the salary schedule, can impact recognition, can impact some things like that. So that's why we agreed on that.
So how do I get 50% of service and not take a leave of absence or have, like this, I just didn't understand those two words. It says, years of service cannot be earned by an employee on a leave of absence.
Correct.
So how would I only do 50% of service in a year and still move up if I can't take a leave of absence and qualify?
So when we discussed this with Dr. Lappy, because we were really struggling with exactly what this looked like, so we did a consultation call. And she is someone that I've worked closely with in my prior district, very, very smart lady, that was from the Columbia School District and works for MU. What she stated by putting that percent or of greater than, it just helped everyone to be on the same page. What we had this year is we had a lady that was honored in 25 years of service, but did not qualify for the retirement program. And so that kind of brought up where Mr. Milborn and I began to discuss, how do we then quantify years of service versus years for the retirement incentive? Because we had her as 23 instead of 25. But because her years of service also included substituting and some other things where she took on a position because someone left for us
Oh, I see.
2 months into a year, Dr. Lappy said she came in and gave you really a years of service because she accepted a contract after someone left after the year started. And so to help us all have a clear communication and a clear standard, that really provided that kind of like gives Mr. Milborn's, HR staff something to kind of sink their teeth around, and for our staff to understand that if you work more than a half of a year, we will count that as a year of
Essentially, I
service.
bring somebody new in, or they've changed some
Yes.
position or something,
Yes,
they can come in October, November, and still get year's credit.
that's
Okay.
correct.
We've hired people in January or February, and and then they teach through June or May, and they say, was that a year of service or not? And so that was always a gray area, so we're saying 50% of your contracted work days.
Thank you, Thank you.
I guess not, I see just we added a lot of clarity around leave.
Yes.
I'm guessing we just had very little clarity on right now.
And we moved some of that leave over directly from the contract
Mhm.
with the unions before, and then put in the handbook, just
Okay.
to unify all of those contracts into the employee handbook.
All right. If there's no further discussion, we'll move to the roll call on the approval of the employee handbook. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres.
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
and Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the approval of the employee handbook for the 2019-2020 school year has been approved. Now up, we have student fees for the coming school year.
I will move approval of these student fees for 2019-2020 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have a question on one that I'm not sure is actually in here. I was trying to find, oh yeah, the driver's education. I talked to somebody who raised a concern, I thought it was a valid one, about students who are taking driver's education multiple times. And if they're on a free or reduced lunch, they're only paying they're not paying. And he had said, it seems like, should there be some, I think there used to be a language around that where the first time was free, and after that it wasn't. And what he's found is it says just, students seem to not take showing up as seriously, where all the other students, it is a rigorous, you start exactly at 2:30, if you're not there, you're gonna take it in the fall. It seems like, it's, we put really high demands on our kids who are paying for that, and not on those who are not. He just thinks it's lessening opportunities for kids who want to take it. I don't know if that's true. I thought it'd be worth looking into. I know that's not really actually this part, but
We actually have looked into that, and this, we called the Department of Education about a year ago. They said we cannot do that. We have to offer it. If somebody's free and reduced and they want to take it a second or third or fourth time, we have to let them do it.
there's nothing for the, I mean, the cost of us, you know, could be, do we have an idea of how many students actually do that? I'm just curious.
I don't know that number, but the DE said that we could not discriminate against those students if they want to take it multiple times.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll move to the roll call for the approval of the 2019-2020 student fees. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres.
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Now we have fees that are regulated for our public records. Is there, pardon me, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the 2019-2020 public records fees as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the roll call for the approval of the 2019-2020 public record fees. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Grove, Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
and Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Now we have the resolution for the status reports from our standing committees.
Move to approve the standing committee's annual status report as presented.
And then second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I did have a question for Dean about the finance committee meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have one in November. That's something that we're gonna have before the budget each year. Is there a, like a best practice for that or something?
So the best practice is exactly that we'd have one in the fall and one in the spring. I apologize, I did not get that done in the spring, and the reason was we were so embedded trying to get Tyler up and running that
Gotcha.
we just didn't do it. So I will make double my efforts to make sure we have two of them next year.
Cool.
Okay, before us now is the vote on the standing committee annual status reports. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
and Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Now we have a contract for paper towels, toilet paper, and trash liners. Is there a motion?
Move approval of Payless Office Supply as the winning bidder of paper towels, toilet paper in the amount of $25,815. And Egan Supply as the winning bidder of trash liners in the amount of $27,225.75.
I'll second that where necessary.
Yes. Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Question. All bids are approved by us? Is that why this is in there? It seems like we buy a lot of things and it doesn't come to our attention.
This one was over 25,000, and it's something that we just do this one annually.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, before us now, we have approval of the contracts for paper towels, toilet papers, and trash liners. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres, Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Now we have an agreement for our special education consortium. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the 2019-2020 Special Education Consortium Agreement as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move right to the vote for the 2019-2020 Special Education Consortium Agreement. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Ogres? Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Now we have a lease agreement that we need to approve.
I'll move to approve the lease agreement with Children's Square as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I guess just would this remove that wait list of the 8 to 18 students that we have, essentially, or no?
No, that wait list was for another building. This is for just preschool.
Oh, okay. No,
No?
wait, no.
To
Are
mental
you,
health,
oh, this is our,
mental health transition.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
That this is, the
Transitions.
wait list that we were talking about is one of our elementary schools.
No, it says in the
No, in
document.
here,
we have a
yeah.
waiting
I get
list,
where-
yeah.
There's
I'm
like,
sorry.
yeah, sorry,
I'm
no.
sorry, Mr. McQuaid.
Just because this would be
Yeah, I
the
get what you're
2
saying.
classrooms
Yes.
instead of just the,
That's correct.
okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
no.
I'm thinking college.
It's been a
view.
long
I'm way over here somewhere. Yeah,
It's late.
it is getting late. I apologize.
You're okay.
And this requires, I assume, just an additional body or two to staff, or 2 bodies? What's the?
Two.
You want Dr. Borthman to explain it now that I've confused it?
Yeah, he's an expert.
I'm thinking wait list somewhere else.
Okay. No, this is for an additional classroom for the transitions program, which we currently operate at Mercy Hospital. And this will help alleviate some of the backlog of the wait list. I don't know that it will completely eliminate the wait list because there seems to be a revolving door of as students come in and in terms of placements, it really depends on what we can find in terms of outside placement.
So again, this is transition.
This is the transition program. So kids who are coming in and out of placement or are waiting to go to placement.
And I assume then they must renovate this place to be secure and meet
So
all.
the Children's Square Academic Center is just opening. It was renovated over the past 2 years, and they have additional classroom space there that they don't believe that they will fill. And we really need a place that is all in exactly what you're talking about, enclosed, is secure, and has access for therapy. And this is a great opportunity because we do not have room in our buildings, and it wouldn't be a very conducive place for kids who need something outside of our buildings to begin with.
Thank you.
There's no further discussion. We'll move to the vote for the approval of the lease agreement between Council Bluffs Community Schools and the Children's Square. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Next up is the agreement for the parking lot improvements and repairs at Madison campus. Is there a motion?
Move to approve Trailblazers Construction LLC of Omaha as the winning bidder for parking lot repairs at the Madison campus in the amount of $153,245.10.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move directly to the vote regarding the acceptance of the proposal for the Madison campus parking lot improvements. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Finally, in our resolutions, we have an agreement between Council Bluffs Schools and the Harlan Community School District. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve the submission of the application for cooperative sponsorship with Harlan Community School District.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
This doesn't in any way limit any of our students' abilities to participate, does it?
No, in fact, this will make us stronger, and I'm really excited to see that Harlem reached out to us, and also the Underwood High School boys for the boys swimming. I think growing and making us more competitive is a win-win.
Okay.
And we're excited to have them join us.
Do they bring with them any additional coaches or trainers?
No.
Anything like that? I'm just curious. They totally join us?
They will join us completely with our coach. And he has worked, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Mr. Hamilton, he works some with these students, correct?
Yeah, we have a new swimming coach, Logan Maxwell, who's a teacher up at Kern. And he is the summer program swimming coach up at Harlan, and so they're joining. And we just found out yesterday, Tri-Center will be bringing a agreement with this. Next month, Tri-Center has one swimmer that also wants to join. So our swimming numbers have gone down a little bit the last few years, so this will be a definite increase in numbers. So.
And the other reason, and Mr. Hamilton, that this is a win-win, we had a lot of parents that were concerned that our swimming program was going to phase out. And this brings that strength and helps our community feel safe that they can stay in Council Bluffs and they will have a good swim team to swim with, and that we have good opportunities for every child.
And that we can still maintain the pool and have the facilities available and the coaching staff too.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Okay, before us now is the approval of the swimming agreement with the Harlan Community School District. Mr. Wilson, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres.
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. Before us now is the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda with acknowledgement of donation from the Knights of Columbus for $866.94.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move directly to the roll call of the approval of our consent agenda. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
and Mr. Kazire.
Yes, and the motion has been approved. This concludes our business for this evening. I do want to kind of wrap things up about our work session this afternoon before our board meeting. During the work session, we were talking about goal setting and collaboration, and as was mentioned by several of the presenters tonight, Mr. Fringer talked about how when focusing on a singular goal, that achievement is definitely exponentially gained. Ms. Chalupnik talked about how when we're looking at evaluation and looking at teacher and then Mr. Schultz talking about evaluation of our principals, we want clear and consistent expectations. We talked about those things when we were in our work session. So I feel like we were very aligned with what we were talking about tonight at our work session. And I want to thank the staff for the district for their consistent messaging that they bring to us. And we're going to work also to have consistent messaging. Mr. Arthur talked about, or Mr. Grove talked about how when we look at our goals that we have set with Dr. Murillo and the board team, having a card, something that we can carry along with us and say, these are our goals, these are our expectations, and we're not going to lose that focus, so that we can constantly promote what we're doing to show student achievement and growth in our district. So I want to thank the staff and the board for the work that they do. And with that, yes, Mr.
I'll just say, I think Chris said something in there that was clearly true about just how much growth the district has made in the past 10 years, and I think just what phenomenal work folks are doing What a great team we have that's just really trying to drive, you know, in the past, I think we had even struggled just to formulate what it was we were trying to track sometimes, or how we were gonna get there. There's just so many moving parts in this district, and how people keep going on without initiative fatigue, I don't know, but I just really appreciate the staff and just everything everyone does, you know, daily to achieve more.
Mr. President, if I may, I forgot to mention during our moment of silence, I just wanted to acknowledge that we lost a great teacher last week. Miss Ruth Rista was with the district for many years. I just wanted to acknowledge her and let her family know that we're thinking of them.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, we are adjourned.